It's another edition of Time About the Movies. We're looking at the first weekend of the summer movie season of 1990, May 25th, 1990, which actually coincidentally, today is the day of that. Today is the 32nd anniversary of that day. This is being recorded on May 25th, 2022. But yeah, the 1990 summer movie season. I like to call it the copycat summer movie season because as I talked about in the last episode, 1989 was, of course, the summer movie season that changed everything and established what we know to be the summer movie season that we're used to having. But in 1990 and 91 and 92, you started to see the Hollywood movie studios trying to repeat the same success that the 89 summer movie season had. So you would see these movies being placed in a similar position as they were in 89. Like, for example, this weekend, you had the third part and supposedly the final chapter of a long-running trilogy, which this actually ended up being the third and final film in this series. And we're going to talk about that one today, because that was the only new release that came out today, and that was Back to the Future Part 3. So Back to the Future Part 3, of course, comes 6 months after Back to the Future Part 2, which we already looked at on a previous episode. I'll put the card for that on the quarter here. And this was one of the first back-to-back sequels that we've had since King Kong and Son of Kong, which was shot back-to-back in the 1930s. I'm pretty sure there's some other ones, too, that I can't remember right now. But, actually, I just thought of one right now. The Breaking movies, I think, were shot back-to-back in 84. But Back to the Future Part 3... This was one of the bigger ones that they did back to back, because you didn't usually see a big blockbuster have back to back sequels coming out like this, like Back to the Future Part 2 and 3 did. So it was kind of a big deal to have both of these movies coming out within 6 months ahead of each other. And Back to the Future Part 2, while it didn't do as well as the first movie did, it did pretty well at the box office. It didn't get the same critical reception that the first movie did, which is interesting because the third movie comes out. It's actually the lowest grossing of the 3 films, and yet it gets a better critical reception than the second Back to the Future movie. Of course, I've talked about how I've been a fan of this franchise for the longest time, and so this third movie, in terms of this third movie, honestly, the third movie of the Back to the Future Part 3, I would say, is the worst of the series, and I put worst in quotation marks because neither one of these movies are terrible, but in terms of the one that I think is the lesser of the 3 films, this is probably it. And I remember when I first watched this movie originally, I liked it, but I didn't want to watch it over and over again. But it's a movie that has indeed grown on me over the last couple of years. Would I say it's better than Back to the Future Part 2? Probably not, but it does wrap up the story very well. They do a good job of tying up a lot of the loose ends from the last 2 movies, and showing some maturity between Marty and Doc, because Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd have these character arcs going on throughout the course of this movie. Of course, Doc falls in love with Clara, played by Mary Steenburgen, and in Back to the Future Part 2, there was a line where he was finding out about the great mystery of the universe, women. And then with Marty's story, we get a callback to one of the main parts of Back to the Future Part 2, where it's revealed that future Marty's life took a downward spiral when he gets into a Rolls-Royce accident. And that plays a big part here in this movie, especially in the second and third acts, because there's a couple of scenes in this movie where Marty and Doc... Well, there's one scene in particular where Marty and Doc... Marty has just been challenged by Buford to a duel, and everyone's expecting Marty to lose that and end up getting killed, to the point where there's a gravestone that at the beginning of the movie was supposed to be Doc's gravestone, because he's supposed to get shot by Buford. But then when this duel happens, the Doc's name gets erased, and it's now Marty's name that he has in the past, Clint Eastwood. And there's a part there where Marty is going, "I'm going back to the future with you. I mean, you heard what that son of a bitch said to me." And Doc is just like, "Marty, you can't let that guy get to you. That's why you get in that Rolls Royce accident." And then there's this moment where Marty's just like, "What?" And he's just like, because we've heard about this in the second movie, and it comes into more detail in this particular movie. And Marty's just like, Marty just straight up tells him, "What about my future?" And Doc is just like, "I can't tell you. It'll make it worse." And Marty is like, "What is wrong with my future?" And Doc again is just like, "Marty, we all gotta do things that we don't want to do." And he's gotta be like, "You gotta do what you gotta do." Something around the lines like that. And of course, what happens at the end of the movie is that we actually see the incident with the Rolls Royce, except this time around, Marty doesn't take the challenge from Needles, which I actually like that they actually made Needles a part of that movie, because it was because of him he'd be in that accident. Needles again played by Flea, and I love the build up to that. I love how they make it seem like he's gonna do the race, he's gonna go with it. But and then as soon as the light turns green, you see Needles and his gang go forward, and Marty and Jennifer go backwards, and Jennifer's just like, "Did you do that on purpose?" And Marty's like, "Yeah, you think I'm stupid enough to race that asshole?" And then you see, of course, that if he had gone for it, he would have hit the Rolls Royce, and then, of course, his life would have been completely different. Which I actually like that they made those callbacks. And I think that's one of the things that makes me like this movie a lot more than I really think I did before when I saw it the first time around. But I mean, you still get a lot of the same tropes in this movie. It still follows the same basic format as the other two movies. Marty's going through the town the first time around, seeing how Hill Valley looks in 1885. He's still got to have the first interaction with Buford in the bar, and I like that they did some stuff that was different. They didn't give Marty an easy win this time around. He actually was in danger at first of almost being hung over by the new clock tower they had at the time. And I do like that he matured as a character. Honestly, he found a way to outsmart Buford. He found a way to grow up a little bit, and I like that. I like the way that they handled this story. I also like the relationship between Lloyd and Steenburgen's characters, Doc and Clara. They actually have a good chemistry together, and of course, Mary Steenburgen's been a great actress over the years, but it's interesting to see Christopher Lloyd as Doc Brown as seem somewhat like a romantic icon in this movie, because he really plays this romance with Steenburgen very well. Like, you really believe these two have a great connection together, and then when you see they have to go through the third act breakup, it's heartbreaking for him. Like, he goes into a stupor by, funnily enough, one thing of alcohol. It's just like, it's one of the funniest things ever. I like that he didn't really, like, he didn't even. What's funny is that he only had one thing of alcohol before he passed out. I thought that was absolutely hilarious. And like I said, the callbacks in this movie are very well done. There's a callback to a movie that the alternate Biff is watching in Back to the Future Part 2 that actually plays a part in the conclusion of the movie, but in the final battle between Marty and Buford. The trade scene is very well done. Like, it still holds up to this very day, even with the practical effects here. It still holds up really well. Like, I'm really impressed with how well that holds up, especially when the train goes off the ravine. I mean, you keep forgetting that that's a prop being filmed on a small train prop, and the way that the camera films it like it's an actual real thing. It's actually pretty impressive how they did that then, and how it still holds up now. I think the best thing about this particular movie is the way the movie ends, how they wrap everything up. They show the DeLorean getting destroyed, which is, of course, a sad moment, and it works very well with Marty going once the DeLorean gets destroyed by the train. He's just looking up to the sky and just like, "Well, Doc, it's destroyed, just like you always wanted." It's just like, yeah, it's a gut-wrenching moment, like, because like that's the symbol of this franchise getting completely destroyed. And that's basically just saying that at that point, it's just like, yeah, this is a yeah. You're not getting yeah. We're not getting another one of these movies because that thing's destroyed. And then of course the way they wrap everything up. They bring back most of the original cast from the first movie for this conclusion, except of course for Crispin Glover. I think it's I can't remember the name of the actor who replaces him. Give me one sec. Jeffrey Reisman as George McFly, Marty's dad, who was in part 2. He was upside down, so you couldn't see him, and now in this movie he's right side up. And then they have the moment at the end where Marty and Jennifer are going through the rubble. They find the picture of the new clock tower in 1885, and then and then Doc comes back with the steam powered train. They wrap up that story, and he has this great speech to Marty about making your own future. And the train has essentially become the new DeLorean. And then the movie ends, and it's just like, it's a perfect way to end the series that really, like, it really does a good job of wrapping up the series the adventure that we've just gone on. And of course we had the Back to the Future animated series that came out a year afterwards, which was a decent show. It wasn't anything too spectacular, but it does a decent job of continuing the story in a way that it doesn't affect the overall enjoyment of the trilogy itself. But I'm glad they haven't done any other sequels or reboots of this, because from what I've read, Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale, I think Steven Spielberg, had a contract at the time of the making of these movies where they said that you could never remake Back to the Future or Jaws without their permission. And I'm glad that they haven't been able to do. These movies haven't been. What's the best way to describe it? I'm glad that these movies haven't been subjected to being remade, rebooted, or having these younger actors coming in here and trying to do this all over again. Because Back to the Future, the series, has been a one-of-a-kind thing. It's a series that has worked well enough as it is. It has worked well enough to stand up on its own and still hold up even to this very day. Like, anytime these movies are on TV, I have to watch it because I just love these movies so much. I will always get an enjoyment factor out of them every single time. They're just movies that I have to watch every single time they're on. I just have to watch them whenever I can find them. They're just that great. They're just that great of a movie for me to. These are just those great of movies for me to just watch over and over again and never get tired of them whatsoever. And like I said, even though Back to the Future Part 3 is definitely the weaker of the series, the weakest film of the series, it's still a very well-made movie. It's a good conclusion to the series. There's still a lot of those moments that make these movies so special, that make them so watchable. The chemistry between these characters works so well. The comedy still works really well. The action set pieces are well done. It knows when to take the heartfelt moments and dramatic moments and work them very well. And the music is still very good. The cinematography is still very well done. The visuals still hold up. It's a great series, man. It's still one of my favorite trilogies of all time. Still one of my favorite series of all time, film series of all time, honestly. And this movie does a pretty good job of wrapping it all up. Like, it does a good job of wrapping the story up. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's just a great trilogy, and the hope is that this series will continue to be just a trilogy. Nobody will be forced to remake these movies in the future, because I don't really think you could do this series again in a new way. Like, it's really hard to do. Maybe you can do stuff with these characters like they've been doing with commercials and shorts and all that, but yeah, like, this is a great series. I mean, Back to the Future Part 3, as much as it's the lesser of the three films, it's still an enjoyable film that wraps everything up. It's just a great movie, and I can't recommend it enough if you haven't already seen it already. So that's my thoughts on Back to the Future Part 3. So with that said, that's going to wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. Later tonight, we'll have the start of June 1990, and we've got another full episode review to do. We've got Arnold Schwarzenegger in the action classic, Total Recall from director Paul Verhoeven. It was the only new release that came out that weekend, so we'll do another full episode on that movie. So be on the lookout for that. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and as always, if you want to see more videos like this, check out the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and I'll see you guys later tonight for another new episode. So thank you for watching. I'll see you guys later on, and until then, take care.